All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Power. So today I wanted to make a video about a bodybuilder from the 1980s and 1990s who I think had some of the most impressive arm and chest genetics to come out of that era. And he was somebody that really probably not a lot of people have heard of, and he didn't really place that highly during his competitive career in terms of any big titles or anything like that. So for that reason, a lot of you guys may not have heard of him. So this bodybuilder's name is Phil Hill. So Phil Hill got started bodybuilding in the early 1980s. In 1982, he did his first show, which was the Mr. New Jersey, the AAU Mr. New Jersey, and he placed first at that competition. So one of the interesting things about Phil Hill is that his career prior to the IFBB, he really had more, titles and success than once he got into the IFBB. So with the AAU, he won the 1986 AAU Mr. America. He also won the 1986 AAU Mr. USA's. Then in 1987, he would go on to compete in the NPC, which he would win the Nationals in the heavyweight division. And then he would finally graduate into the IFBB in 1988. Now, once he got to the IFBB, he actually had a pretty good debut year. So the first show that he did with the IFBB was the IFBB Niagara Falls Pro Invitational, where he placed second. Then the next show that he would do would be the third biggest show in bodybuilding at the time, which was the 1988 IFBB Night of Champions, and he won that entire show his very first year as an IFBB pro. Then that same year at the Olympia, he would place 12th at his first Olympia ever. But then mysteriously from 1989 onward, his placings would drop. He would compete at several Grand Prix in 1989 where he would place third, fourth, and third again. Then in 1990, he would do that Niagara Falls Pro that he did the first year he competed, and his placings would drop all the way to 11th. And then after that 1990 IFBB Night of Champions, he wasn't really heard from again. So when a lot of people refer back to the 80s and 90s, they refer to this thing kind of called the curse of the 90s. And that really means during the 90s, there were just so many great bodybuilders, that bodybuilders like Phil Hill that were good and had great physiques, but didn't place very highly at the Olympia, were really just forgotten about and didn't really get that much attention. So to give you guys some context on that, at the 1988 Mr. Olympia, where Phil Hill placed 12th, first place you had Lee Haney, you had Rich Gaspari. In second place, you had Barry DeMay. In third, Lee Labrada, Gary Stridham, Mike Quinn, Brian Buchanan, Samir Bannout, Ron Love, Bob Paris, Momo Benaziza. You had Sean Ray, you had Michael Ashley, you had Albert Beckles, Edward Kowak, who was a 5-time Mr. Universe. You had Robbie Robinson, you had Peter Hensel, Luis Fritas, and Ralph Moeller. So you had some of the greatest bodybuilders in the history of the sport competing in that era, from the late 80s going into the 1990s, and Phil Hill was up against a very, very tough crowd. Now, Phil Hill really had a lot of things going for him. If you look at his physique, he had incredible biceps. I think it could have almost worked to his detriment because his biceps were so big. They definitely overwhelmed the size of his triceps and the size of his shoulders. So that could be one of the things that held him back from placing very highly, was he might have been too bicep dominant. But his chest was very good. His quads were excellent, especially for that period of time. And his conditioning, man, his conditioning was pretty good too. Every picture that you see of this guy, he's pretty much, vascular and veiny and just looking crazy shredded. There's a couple pictures where he looks a little bit soft. But for the most part, if you look back at pictures of this guy, pretty much 99% of the time, this guy was shredded to the bone. And of course, you cannot simply deny that haircut he had, man, it was amazing. That flat top, some might say it was proper. And then, of course, his posing was incredible, too. He had this back double bicep shot where he would actually do the splits to show off the development of his hamstrings and his glutes in that back double bicep shot. So he had the posing nailed. He had the muscularity nailed. He had the biceps nailed. He could hit a vacuum pose. This guy had it all, man, and really I think he should have done a lot better, placed a lot higher, and get a lot more recognition today, because this guy was a legend of the sport. This guy had an incredible physique, and I wanted to make a video just kind of showcasing how good his physique really was. In fact, he was only 5'8" or 172.5 centimeters tall, and his weight was between 225 and 235, or 102.1 to 106.6 kilograms. So he's actually a pretty heavy bodybuilder for being only 5'8" in the 1980s. 235 pounds at 5'8" is a pretty big bodybuilder, especially for that time period. So this guy was a great bodybuilder. Just wanted to make a video kind of showcasing his accomplishments and how great his physique really was. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.